Ladies and gentlemen, good evening to everyone. Once again, you are welcome here on the platform for Awakening Consciousness. So, this is the headline of Continental News, African News. The Ghanaian president, the former transitional president, Brice Clotaire, Oligui Nguema, has been sworn in. He was sworn in today, May 3rd, 2025. He has therefore been officially inaugurated into his role as President of the Republic. Thus, he officially takes the reins of the country for a 7-year term. It must be said that this inauguration was a total and perfect success, as the turnout was significant, both among Gabonese citizens who filled the stadium and especially on the international level. We see a well-ordered entry into the concert of nations. Several heads of state were present, except I believe the heads of state of the AES, who sent their representative. Yes, if I am not mistaken, because in fact, what should be mentioned is that the representative hostile of the president of FASO was applauded like never before. So, there were 16 heads of state present, and thus the ceremony went very well. Among these heads of state, we have President Debi Kaka, President of Chad. We have Denis Sassou Nguesso. We have, who else? We have the Guinean President, Mamadi Doumbouya. We have the Senegalese President. Many presidents arrived. So, this presence of several heads of state, most of whom are young, elevated the level of the inauguration and obviously brought Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema into the circle of heads of state. So, beyond the inauguration, there are questions that arise since we know how the man came to power. And lately, this has become the official path to follow, to gain power. Come through arms, then afterwards organize elections, and then remain in power as a civilian from now on. We do know, however, that Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema is someone who has always worked for France. And the concern that many Pan-Africans have is whether, with the current pressure, he will decide to change nonetheless. We are not against Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema. We support the type of political regime that each country desires. The Gabonese want Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema. They have in fact spent more than 55 years under the rule of the Bongos. So, the Gabonese never even thought that one day another president could take over the country. That's why they are very happy with the arrival of Brice Clotaire. Clotaire himself is very, very happy. We saw him during the campaigns, we even saw him breakdancing and all that. And even during his swearing-in ceremony, he was seen smiling broadly. Well, he is someone who naturally smiles a lot. So, Brice Clotaire has worked for France for a long time, and today we are in a dynamic of breaking those ties with France. Today we are in pursuit of the sovereignty of our different nations. So we wonder, is it because they do not share the same vision that the heads of state of the AES did not attend? Well, it's not mandatory for them to attend. As long as they have already sent their representative, that is more than sufficient. But when we talk about the president of FASO, we know that the instability prevailing in FASO is not child's play, especially in recent times. There are coups d'etat that are perpetually being prepared. So, if the president of FASO were to attend, wouldn't that create other issues behind the scenes? These are many questions, but the main question is, what will be the ideological orientation of Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema? It must be acknowledged that just after 19 months, he organized elections to legitimize himself. So, today, this swearing-in ceremony is causing quite a stir. All Africans, everyone has their own comment, but the main concern of Africans is to see this gentleman adopt a sovereignist mindset. Even if everyone has their own method, in their own way, even if it's not necessary to immediately resort to violence with the former colonizers, but to find a way to assert oneself in terms of sovereignty. Because we, Pan-Africans, we Africans, African youth, what are we afraid of? We are most afraid if a head of state does not want to be sovereignist, we can understand and leave them to their game in their camp. But when you do not assert a sovereignist position, you become easily usable by imperialists, by Western imperialism to harm other African states. Herein lies the problem. So Africa still hopes that Brice Clotaire Olidingema, like Déby Kaka, Idriss Déby Itno in Chad, who also served the imperialism for a long time, but who later, even before his election, began to reorient himself, to reorient his ideology. Even though there are still many things to review on that side, on the side of Chad, he has started to rid himself of the French army, of France, I would say. That's what we want. We know that all heads of state, each has their own technique, their own way of coming to power. When you are newly in power, it's not easy. You need to wait until you have firmly planted your roots, and then you will make decisions that are your own. So, the hope today is to see Gabon not become a second Ivory Coast. Our wish is to see Gabon become the relay of the AAs. In other words, a country, a collaborating country of the AAs, meaning one that shares the same vision as the AAs. So, that is the fundamental wish. And so, today, he was sworn in. He officially becomes the President of the Republic. So, as we were saying, he is a Brigadier General, Brice Clotaire Olidingema. He is a Brigadier General. Well, and since April 12th, 2025, he was acclaimed and elected with 94.85% of the votes. He entered the stadium on the roof of a car in a navy blue suit with a red thing. In any case, the whole setting was there. It was really nice. And we see him very joyful with all the heads of state. And it went really well, at least for the moment. But the hope of Africans is not to see him betray the sovereignist struggle that is already underway. So, here's a bit of what needs to be said regarding this swearing-in ceremony. I'll get back to you shortly with more news. This was the voice of your humble servant, Robert Théa.